The Olympics are a massive event. Millions of visitors have flooded into Paris, 9 million tickets have been sold, and this huge influx of people makes it a lot easier for criminals to slip through the cracks. I mean, we've already seen all kinds of stuff go down, like the railways getting sabotaged and hackers getting into Olympic systems. That's why France has created an AI mass surveillance system to control the huge amounts of people. And the system sees everything. Every bit of video from security cameras around the city has been getting fed into the AI to spot suspicious activity. And on the surface, it all makes sense. Let the AI be the eyes that humans can't be. But is the system giving the French government too much power? The software they're using is so new and powerful that France had to change their laws just to allow it. Or is it justified with how many people and potential threats are at the Olympics? Well, in this video, we're going to look at how the system works and the very dangerous precedent this could set for France and the rest of Europe. It's early March 2023 and the French government is looking ahead towards the year of the Olympics with excitement and trepidation. When you're a host country for the games, you want to make sure that your country is portrayed in the best light possible. You want things to be clean, safe, and orderly. This is not the time for stuff to go off the rails. And the French government is especially keen on making sure nothing happens because they've had security issues with other large sporting events in the past. In short, they can't mess this up. And it makes sense. You want people to stay safe. And so they wanted to dramatically step up their security to make it harder for criminals to sabotage the Olympics. They assigned 45,000 police officers and 8,000 soldiers to the Olympics. But manpower can only take you so far. Oftentimes it's really hard to identify where something is happening, and it's hard to put the pieces together of suspicious activity to figure out where a crime is going to take place. This is where Article 7 of a proposed law comes in. What it allowed authorities to do was to use AI security cameras to monitor people and look for suspicious activity. And almost right off the bat, a ton of civil rights groups started protesting the bill. And they repeatedly brought up the same point. This could set a dangerous precedent for future surveillance in France. Article 7 did set an expiration date for the surveillance, which is March 31st, 2025. The bill was introduced for the Olympics. Why would you need to continue using the technology 7 months after the Olympics already end? It kind of looks like they were intending this AI surveillance to not just be for a one-off event. Once the law is introduced, it could set up a cascade of laws that broaden surveillance for France as a whole. Many people understandably were not happy about this law. Several lawmakers challenged it and they had some pretty important concerns. First of all, the wording made it out to be as temporary, but it could easily become permanent. They pointed to China. Back in Beijing during the Olympics, China tested out surveillance systems that never went away once the games finished. And the systems in general would just undermine privacy and civil rights. But there were also lawmakers on the other side. They argued that the risk was worth it to keep people safe, saying the 2016 terrorist attack in Nice could have been avoided with AI security cameras. And these arguments bring up an age-old debate. Whether keeping people safe outweighs the risks of infringing on personal freedom. And I think the answer to this question really comes down to how much you trust your government. Will they use the technology to do what they say they're going to? Well, we'll see later in this video that the French government did some pretty shady things leading up to the Olympics that might make you not trust them with China-level surveillance technology. It's May 19th of 2023, and the government just passed the law that was introduced months earlier. France was now preparing to experiment with the AI technology and using it to review captured video footage. Now, what would it be looking for? Well, built into the AI software were predefined events to be on the lookout for. Programmers can train the algorithm to identify different behavior. And the law actually specified what kind of behavior the AI is looking for. It looks for crowd surges, abnormally heavy crowds, abandoned objects, presence or use of weapons, a person on the ground, a fire breaking out, and contravention of rules on traffic direction. And all of this would be done in real time. One key thing that I would like to point out is that the law specifically prohibited facial recognition. And you might think, well, that's less invasive. Yeah, it is, but in reality, searching for and identifying behavior of people still has the same effect. If you allow the government to monitor what behavior is normal or suspicious, whatever suspicious could be, you're still creating the effect of mass control. For example, China has their social credit score. How is that score calculated? Well, it's based on people's activities or behaviors, like jaywalking or smoking in the wrong area. Both of these could hypothetically be tracked with France's system. My point is, the term suspicious behavior could be whatever the government decides. Now it's a couple weeks before the Olympics and preparations are being made. Homeless people and migrants are being conveniently bussed out of sight of the Olympic attendees, so the Paris streets are looking especially clean. But police are still concerned about the biggest threat to the games, and that is terrorism. They started to identify high-risk individuals that they needed to keep an eye on. And once they found the high-risk individuals, they placed restrictions on them, like not being able to move freely. They essentially were put on a watch list. And most of the people on this list were minorities from North Africa, with many of them not even having a criminal record. And on top of that, the orders to restrict movements didn't have to have a judge's approval. And I want you to picture this scenario just to see how messed up what they're doing is. You're in Paris and you're deemed a high-risk individual. You can't leave your neighborhood for any reason. And by any reason, I mean any reason, even if it's like a family emergency. Also, you have to check in daily with the police at a certain time. Also, if you violate these terms, and that could be as little as missing a check-in for a day, you could be put in prison for 3 years and fined close to $50,000. Now, if you heard that without context, you would probably be thinking I was referring to something in China, and that would be no surprise. But this is in a Western democratic country that promotes freedom. Now, what does this have to do with AI surveillance? Well, remember how I said earlier the answer to whether you should have these systems is how much you trust your government? Well, I think their actions done here show that they can't be trusted with this kind of surveillance technology. So now the Olympics finally start, and the battle between security and chaos begins. There's already been people arrested for planning attacks, but overall things are going about as good as you would expect at an event this large. And the big question still remains, will it stay around after the Olympics end? That remains to be seen, but my guess is probably yes, they will. It's very rare for governments to give up power after they've already had it. What's happening in Paris right now could be the new normal for France. And with the French government's track record, the AI surveillance system should not be used, and hopefully it will be dismantled after the Olympics come to an end. But let's turn our attention further east, into Ukraine specifically. This is where AI is being used in a much different way, and that's to find and eliminate the enemy. If you want to see how AI drones are being used in the Ukrainian battlefield, you should definitely click the video on your screen right now.